Hello everyone, so I'm back here for hopefully what's going to be the final part to our Luminari Box project. So we've done the part where I showed you how to cut out the pieces, then how to assemble the Luminari Box, and then I talked to you in a third part about drawing your designs onto your box before you actually start cutting. So just to kind of go over that again, what I did is I created a design. And then I went ahead and was able to make some copies of it. I made 4 copies because I'm doing the same design on each side. So once I made the copies, I held them up onto my project and lined them up in the center as best I could. And I just used the tip of a pencil and basically traced the design. As you trace the design, it's going to press into the clay and it's going to leave impressions and lines there so that when you peel away the paper, you'll be able to see your designs. So I did that on all 4 sides, and then basically I used my X-Acto knife. Now if you don't have an X-Acto knife at home, you can use whatever knife you have. Probably a smaller tip is going to be easier to work with if you have more intricate or curvy or tighter designs than say a big large knife. So an X-Acto knife is nice to go with. And so then at that point, I went ahead and I cut out the designs on all 4 sides of my Luminari box. Again, I used the same design on all 4 sides. Now when you cut, try to insert the knife and drag it to make the cuts. It'll make nicer, cleaner cuts. They won't end up looking rough or jagged and so forth. So I'm going to hold this up a little bit closer so you can see. Now what you'll also notice is you'll see the fragments of the paper where I held it onto the clay, the moisture soaked into the paper, and as a result some of it stuck as I peeled it away. That's okay because I can sponge that away when I smooth it out, and if there is any remains left of it, it will burn out in the fire as the project is fired. So this is mine at this point. You can see it's cut all the way around. Now if you look closely, you can see that it's not been cleaned up. I don't know if the camera will pick that up or not, and it's hard for me to know if I'm holding it high enough or low enough for you guys to see. But it's not been cleaned up, especially on the inside. So now what I'm going to be doing is working with a sponge and just smoothing and cleaning everything out the best I can. And I'm going to try and start from the inside and then work my way around to the outside. So when I do sponge, I'm going to go ahead and squeeze most of the water out of the sponge itself, and then I'm just going to basically take the sponge and I'm going to sponge and smooth out the cuts. I'm sponging away from the edges of the cuts. That's going to go ahead and clean them up and make them look much nicer. We want to make sure we get all the little scraggly bits out of there so that we can make our project look as neat and as perfect as we can. So I will go around and do that on the entire surface, inside and out, trying to make it look as perfect and as clean as I can. Then what I'll do is I'll take the tip of my pencil or the tip of a needle tool, and I will go inside the cuts and I will just use that to rub along the edges. It's called burnishing. And what that will do is just smooth out those edges, take away any rough, jagged parts, and just clean it up to look nice and smooth. The more kind of rounded these edges are, the easier it's going to be, or the nicer the glaze will tend to look on it. So if I can sponge and smooth and round these off, it's going to help in the firing process when I go to glaze it. If you have a sharp edge, what happens is the glaze will want to melt and break off that edge, and you'll see the raw bits of the clay coming through even after it's been glazed. If you go ahead and you sponge it and you round off those edges, the glaze will tend to stick there a little bit better than say a harsh, sharp edge, and you will see less of the natural color of the clay coming through. And I just think it ends up giving it a softer, nicer, neater, cleaner look. So I'll be working on that throughout the day today, throughout the 3 different periods of classes. If I don't get it done today, I'll continue working on it tomorrow. But this is where I spend the most of my time, really sponging, smoothing, cleaning things up at the end to make my project look the best that I possibly can. One other thing, if you're making little holes for cutouts, you don't have to try and cut little circles with your knife. If you've got a straw at home, you can use that as a hole punch. As long as your clay hasn't gotten too dry, you can basically insert and twist this as it goes in, and you can use that as a hole punch. I like the straws from In-N-Out because they're a little larger. than say some of the other fast food places. So that is it. I'm going to continue working on mine. I'm going to try to clean it up, make it as perfect as I can, and once I get that all finished up, then I'll be completed. This is our last assignment. Do a great job on it and finish the quarter strong. Remember to get all your projects turned in by the end of the grading period. Okay, that's it. If you've got any questions, you can feel free to ask me once we're in class. Otherwise, have a great time making your Luminari box.